This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome to Camp Myth. Chapter 5, October 23rd, 2013. Welcome back, campers. Are you ready for Chapter 5? Last week, our campers took to the skies, and we learned that RG likes crossword puzzles. And apparently, the mysterious voice in Felix's head does too. Let's continue with the story. Now listen close, campers. Where were we? Ah, yes.
Camp Myth, Phoenix Watching, by Chris Lewis Carter. Chapter 5. While the rest of the bus struggled through more songs, including an almost unbearable rendition of On Top of Chimera, I passed the time by helping Archie with his crossword puzzles. Well, to be fair, I gave up after he insisted that Ratulgas wasn't an 11-letter word for carefully planned, but the voice in my head always seemed to come up with the right answers. She still wouldn't tell me who she was or where she came from, but she did keep reassuring me that I wasn't going insane, which was nice. Archie was asking about a 9-letter word for left alone when I heard the high-pitched whine of scraping metal. Curious, I looked out the window where Turbo's massive claw still firmly gripped the support rod. Everything seemed fine for another few seconds, but then I heard the noise again, louder this time, so I pressed my face against the glass for a better view. Was it me, or did it look like the large square base where the rod attached to the bus was a little loose? "Hey, Archie," I nudged him with my elbow. "Did you hear anything just now?"
"Another voice inside your head. You must be having a party in there,"
he said, then went back to concentrating on the puzzle. "No, it's not just that. Just look out the window for a second. Does the support look a little loose to you?" Instantly his expression hardened.
"Not funny, Felix. Making up voices is one thing, but I told you that I'm not good with flying, so if you're trying to scare me, quit it."
I held up my hands in surrender. "Whoa, calm down. I'm serious. You didn't hear that? It's like—"
"I said quit it!"
For the first time since we'd met, I realised Archie had some cyclopean traits after all. He'd yelled loud enough to bring the sing-along to a screeching halt, and I could feel every eye on the bus staring at us once again. His cheeks were already starting to turn bright red when Lil made her way down the aisle and stopped by our seat.
"Hey now, is everything okay down here, you two?"
Archie nodded and fidgeted with his fingers.
"Yes, Mum, I'm sorry. It's just that..."
He paused for a moment.
"Can I ask you something? Is this bus really, safe?"
Lil patted Archie on the shoulder and gave him a most reassuring look.
"Sweetie, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. All of our rocks are registered transport birds, and we make sure to carefully inspect each bus before takeoff for safe—"
And at the exact moment she said, "safe," there was a violent tremble followed by a loud scrunch of metal, and the entire bus flipped 90 degrees. Everyone started screaming like crazy as all of the Fae on the left side of the bus were dumped out of their seats and sent toppling onto the campers sitting on the right. Before I could react, Archie's enormous belly pinned me against the window, which was now located where the floor should have been. From my new view of the sky below, I watched as the detached support rod spiraled through the air and disappeared into the clouds. Lil was struggling to free herself from being sandwiched between Archie and two panicked Fae girls that had been sitting across from us.
"It's gonna be okay. Everyone just stay calm,"
she shouted above the chaos, but it was impossible for her to take charge of a situation like this. We were trapped inside of a rickety old school bus that was being held by one claw of a giant bird. If there was a good time to be the opposite of calm, it was probably now. The bus bounced wildly, once, twice, 3 times, and I knew exactly what was happening. Without another rod to balance the load, Turbo was losing what little grip he had on the remaining handle.
"We're all going to die! We're all going to die!"
Archie's rapid breathing changed to a thick wheezing noise, and he sounded as though he was going to pass out at any moment. "Lil," I shouted, trying to squirm out from underneath his bulk. "Turbo's slipping. He needs something else to hold on to or we're all going to drop."
Working on it,
she called back, but even from my position I could see that she was still tightly wedged between the other campers.
Don't worry, I can handle this. We're gonna be okay.
Once again, Lil didn't have a chance to finish her sentence before something terrible happened. There was one last jarring bounce before Turbo lost his grip completely and the bus was plunged into a spiralling freefall. If things were bad before, they had officially become much worse. As the bus plummeted, we were tossed around like pebbles in a tin can. In a flash, RG, Lil and the two Faye girls were thrown to the other side of the bus, and I landed on top of them with a loud oomph. Before any of us had a chance to catch our breath, we rocketed back to the other side, where RG and company squashed me against the window again. The entire process repeated nearly half a dozen times before there was a deafening crash of broken glass and Turbo's enormous claws burst through the windshield and latched onto both sides of the frame. It was enough for him to regain his grip, but it also flipped the bus into a vertical swing. As tiny diamonds of glass rained down upon us, it suddenly felt as though we were trapped inside of a giant pendulum. I was hurled backward and became pinned to my seat, and Archie slumped in beside me. That was when I noticed his eye was closed, but not in the can't watch this terror of our initial takeoff. Somewhere along the way, Archie had actually passed out from fright. Lil had ended up in the adjacent seat with the Faye girls, and now that she could properly use her hands, she was waving them in some kind of pattern. When she completed her movements, two leafy green vines burst out of her palms and snaked their way to the front of the bus, where they wrapped around Turbo's ankles and attached to each side of the windshield frame. It wasn't much, but they could provide an extra layer of safety if Turbo lost his grip again. She was in the middle of another hand pattern when Archie's lifeless body tilted to the side, then fell out of the seat and tumbled down the aisle to the back of the bus. I didn't have time to think, but if I did, I probably would have made the same decision. I shouted, "Archie!" then heaved myself out of my seat and hurled down the aisle after him. My plan was to simply drag him to safety of another row, but that idea quickly went out the window. Or maybe I should say, out the door. Because the moment Archie collided with the back of the bus, he burst through the emergency exit and disappeared. And I was right behind him.
This week's Camper Spotlight is Drew, the flora photographer. Felix says Drew the centaur is always happiest when he's taking pictures or discovering weird plants. Sometimes, if he's lucky, he can do both at the same time, like when he stumbled across a fully matured mandrake. I didn't stick around to see how things turned out, though. Never trust foliage that might be smarter than you are. It's a rule of mine. Drew was invented by Kate Tregovac. You can find the picture of him on the Camp Myth webpage. Cast of Wonders needs your help. We love bringing you free stories every week, but we can't do it without you. Please consider donating at castofwonders.org, where you'll find our PayPal buttons for regular and one-time donations. Or you can help spread the word about Camp Myth and our weekly stories by blogging about us, tweeting, writing us a review on iTunes, or liking our Facebook page. There are plenty of ways for you to show your love for our tales of the fantastic. Camp Myth Phoenix Watching is a Cast of Wonders production brought to you by Wolfsbane Publishing and featuring the voice acting of Kate Baker, Adam Black, Tina Connolly, Graham Dunlop, Christiniana Ellis, Marguerite Kenner, Alethea Contis, Alistair Stewart, Ian Stewart, and Barry J. Northern. You can learn more about the world of Camp Myth at our website, castofwonders.org. Our weekly episodes are released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Share it, but don't change it or sell it, please. The Camp Myth theme music, August, is by our favorite musical artist, Alexi Nav from musicalley.com. Thanks for listening.